This conference will now be recorded.
Good morning, Secret Treasure Land. I hope you all are doing very well this morning. And I wanted to walk through an abridged version of the Shoreline Solve for you. The one I cut during Christmas was an hour and 7 minutes. And curiously enough, the New York bookend solve turned out to be exactly the same, 107. So I know that's long, and I want to give you the abridged version. Okay, so you all can think and digest on this. All right, so the picture I'm showing you here, this is what sold me on it. Okay, so this is where we're ending up. We're going to end up at the bridge, starting in Fisherman's Wharf, ending at the bridge. I don't know. The imagery here to me is it's undeniable. I think I'm going to show you why we felt initially we were going to be at a battery in San Francisco. There's a lot of battery imagery, and we were at a few of them. We started poking around here at Battery Lancaster, right near the bridge. It was like, boy, these stone spires, the portico up here in the back. It's just such a great fit. I'm not sure you can find maybe better imagery fit. If you can, let me know. Uh, but this is what this is what sold us. This is what sold me. So I want to walk through this, try to get through it um, in a more expeditious manner. All right. So for a moment, the GGP solve that everybody loves because they see the image, and I'm gonna reference that here at the end, is a GGP solve does not make sense in my opinion, especially if you start at Fisherman's Wharf, because you're gonna cut 6 miles through the city where there's virtually nothing. I mean, a city. Uh, to start in Fisherman's Wharf, and then all of a sudden this big long trek into the park where you're bypassing all the cool things on the shoreline. So it just doesn't add up. And I think after I published this, a lot of people came off GGP, and I think that's the right thing. All right. So, this is not, if this solve is right, if the shoreline solve is correct, and whether or not you like how I get there or not, I think the end spot is like, I think it's it. I do. I think it's it. If you don't like how we got there, but you like the imagery, this is not my solve. I'm merely pulling the curtain back, right? This is Byron's solve. It's not mine. Nobody owns it. I don't think. So, if it's the wrong solve, yeah, it's mine because it's wrong. But if it's Byron's, like, get on board with this and join the team. So I'm planting my flag here at Battery Lancaster, and you can too. So there's been some people who've added stuff, like especially to the Von Briesen solve in New York. Um, and so, yeah, I'm like sharing the success if this is right, okay? But don't be afraid to get on this idea and abandon yours, because it's not like, it's Mark's idea. No, I'm just maybe the mayor. Okay, join in. So the shoreline solve starts down in Fisherman's Wharf, and it continues up the shoreline. We don't take a 5-6 mile detour just to get to the edge of GGP, and then within the park it's probably 6 or 7. No, I don't think that's what he's doing. He's giving you a highlight tour. All these cool things are on the shoreline. All right. So you start down here in Fisherman's Wharf and you make your way up to Ghirardelli. From Ghirardelli over to Crissy Field. Crissy Field to the cemetery, the National Cemetery, where you have Funston's grave, which Funston and Twain had this big ordeal, right? And then you wind your way through these super curvy roads inside the Presidio and you end up at the bridge, okay? That's it in the nutshell. That's the shoreline solve. But I'm going to give you some of the information. So again, if you want a more detailed view of this, I'm gonna skip right on through. But I think if you look at the map, and I got to come out of here, yeah, it aligns very well to. And I've changed the coloration here to show you, but this is like, gosh, it's a really close match, right? So there's the old from 1982, I believe, is this aerial, and boy, oh boy, it just lines right up. You can see it, this outline. This is the yacht club down here. Okay, so, and by the way, the hand here is pointing to, this would be the bridge. The finger's pointing to this area. which is Battery Lancaster. All right. So, follow the clock hands. I talk about this a lot, and I don't know why people, well, I kind of know why, but the clock hands are giving you the general area. So is it going to give you the exact? No. Some people are, that's not, the clock hands can't tell you exactly where to dig. No, they can't, but they're going to tell you the general area. So then you got to zoom in and then, sort it out. But my goodness, this, the rose is just such a great match, right? You've got this little piece sticking out. Oops. You got this piece sticking out, which is where Fort Point is. Look at that, right? I mean, this is very trail like. So the clock hands, just follow those, folks. Same thing in, in Charleston. Just follow those. They point right to Patriots Point, and there's all these Navy references. Okay, same thing here. Just follow the clock hands. It's not pointing to GGP, right? So I'm going to post this whole presentation out there so you all can play with this and see just what a great fit the rose is for this area. And boy, it makes sense, doesn't it? That this area is such a great match visually. If this is where you end up, I think it is. All right. So the start, 43 and a half. We talked about this slide. There's like, these number of blocks match, 38, 39 blocks in Fisherman's Wharf. That's kind of where it starts, right? That kind of makes sense. She's clearly pointing to the fourth block and in between them. Now, a lot of people don't like the enhanced image. I do. I do. If you're looking at very detailed things, maybe it's a stretch, but somebody saw something there and they're trying to represent that. But look, I don't have a really hyper detailed view of the original. So I kind of have to use this. And I was out there looking, I can't really find one. Now, some people argue, again, this is like shades here, but 43 and a half is a very prominent, historical area. It's the red and white, which I'll cover in the next slide. And then there's this little chip underneath the fingernail here. Now, I took that slide out because you all don't like it. Oh, no, that's there. And then, people just get all up in arms about it. But yeah, I think it looks like the fairy arch from the top. It doesn't have to be. She's still pointing to 43 and a half, okay? This is the start. That's one thing about all these puzzles is he's very clear about the start. So there's a lot you can infer from the start, is there not? Like where you end up. You're not going to go 6 miles through the city to GGP, I don't think. So to me, this is like very clear in Fisherman's Wharf back in the 1980s. You learned about it from what you saw on TV and like books. So it's not like today where you can learn a lot about every little nook and cranny. This was a major component, a major sort of area, right, that people think about when they think about San Francisco. It makes sense that he's starting in such a cool spot. All right, so we're starting at 43 and a half. So what's down there? Stonewall's Door. This is the ferry arch. Okay, this was a launching point for shipping, I believe, to Alcatraz. And then right next to this is actually Pier 43. 43 and a half is the red and white ferry service. They were the very first ferry service to go to Alcatraz back in 1973. Okay, this is just an iconic thing when people think about this area. So, yeah, this makes sense to me. All right, I'm not going to cover this too much. Air smells sweet, not far away, 3 posts high. Okay, I think people have this. The view is like really awesome from the street across the posts, and then you see Alcatraz right in the background. Why not? People are just trying to, they have all these different ideas what this could be. Why not the easy one? Why not the thing that makes sense? That just, you don't have to go very far, right? It's like some of these solve ideas, I just think a lot of people are wasting time and trying to make all these super intricate connections with geometry and math and all. Maybe it's this simple. That's my thing. Try to solve it in a most simple way first and see if it works. So this is like going from Fisherman's Wharf up to the bridge. That's a super easy concept, isn't it? Well, is there anything that makes sense? in the verse to get us there. Like, there is. Okay. So, yeah, maybe we get a lot better idea and certainty about where these boxes are or were if we just stop going so far off the board. Okay, just try to make it easy on yourself. Okay, so this is why, I think we got this. Next step, sounds from the sky near Aces High. Sounds from the sky. If you're down in San Francisco on the shoreline, you cannot help but hear these foghorns that are sitting on top of the Golden Gate Bridge. And then when you think about it, watch movies, this is just, it is a quintessential part of San Francisco. So for Byron to reference, does this make sense? Absolutely. There's a billion sounds that come from the sky, but this is maybe the most likely one. So I'm going with it. All right. So we're down on the shoreline. By the way, if you're up in GGP, you're not going to hear those foghorns. Okay. I don't think. Someone correct me if I'm wrong. So the most obvious thought of sound from the sky in San Francisco, you hear it on the shoreline. You don't hear it up there. So that to me just, I don't have to go very far to reason that out, do I? All right, Crissy Field. Crissy Field is named after a military pilot. Major Dana Crissy was very well known, and he was a very big aviation guy, and he died in a crash, I believe. But this field is named after him, and it was an operating airfield up until like the very late 70s. So right when Byron was there, it was still an airfield. And I think a lot of you haven't put this together because first of all, you're running up to GGP, but second of all, it is just a field, so you have to look into it. So as I'm looking like where do I go from here from the chocolate factory, it's like, is there anything that sort of fits this ACE? What is an ACE? Military pilot. Happens to be a military field. Not too far from there that leads me up to the bridge. I don't know. I think this is a kind of an easy one. Now, this is where it gets a little tricky. But, running north, but first in Jules' direction is object of Twain's attention. So the 101 runs north. And this picture down here shows you the freeway as it was being built. So this was, quite a while ago. Here's Crissy Field right here. And then up here's cemetery. So, the object of 20th century, people have a billion ideas on what this could be. And for me, it's like, okay, I'm on a journey. I'm starting Fisherman's Wharf to the chocolate factory. Like, that alone sets the pace, right? Doesn't that set the tone of like where we're headed? I think it does. Very clearly, Fisherman's Wharf, chocolate. Now I'm up at Crissy Field. Now where? Okay, so is there anything up here that connects to Mark Twain? Yeah, General Funston. Okay, his grave marker is up here in the cemetery. So here I am at Crissy Field, and I can just scoot right over to the cemetery. So, it's not a cemetery. Well, it's not buried in the cemetery. But this is an incredible cemetery. And these are this picture I took. I'm going to show you another one here in a sec. But General Funston and Twain had this like clash that Twain just lampooned him with this article. Now, I guess he was stationed right here in Denver. Funston was at the time. And this article just really knocked Funston down. And he was like a hero. He's all over in San Francisco. There's a park on the ocean named after him, and there's streets. And he lived up in the Presidio, by the way. So read into him. He's a really cool dude. Oh, and by the way, some people thought he was going to be Teddy Roosevelt's VP. So there's another connection to Teddy. Okay, Teddy's all over this thing. So I don't know. Is that a stretch? Maybe, but it is a connection. Funston and Teddy. So, man, I don't know. That just seems to make sense, and it doesn't seem like very much of a stretch. It's certainly not a far distance from Crissy. You can walk there. All right, so I'll let you sort of look into that. But here's the view. And Funston's grave, I think it's like over here. It's incredible. This is the most beautiful cemetery, certainly scenic, that I've ever been to. So go up there and see. Is this somewhere that Byron would want to stop along the way? You better believe it. This is I don't know. Look at it. It's beautiful. Almost looks like maybe Hawaii or something, but beautiful there. Go and see it. It's moving. All right. So I think inside of what you're seeing in the drag and all that are look at these houses. These were temporary housing units that were built after the 1906 earthquake and fire, right? They displaced a couple 100,000 people that lived there. And the thing about the Presidio versus GGP, the Chinese were huddled into the Presidio, like as far away as they could get them. And part of that was the some folks at the time wanted to take over Chinatown. They're like, oh, there's our opportunity, right? We moved all the Chinese out. Now we can take it over. And of course, uh, there was some political maneuvering and things like that, where the Chinese delegates came in, or one delegate came in and prevented it. And so there's a whole history behind this. But yeah, like look what's going on inside of here. These aren't just scales. Look at how closely it resembles. I think this is a nod to this very, very historic event. And again, Chinese weren't up in GGP, they were in the Presidio. Okay, that to me just makes sense. It's so I think what you're seeing here, and I'll let you again look in this, but this is a stunning visual match that I haven't seen anyone else sort of really talk about. So yeah, I'm going with this. I like it. So there's this whole yin and yang concept to this puzzle that matches not only within the puzzle itself, but I think also the bookend of New York, right? And so I'm going to do a whole separate video on this of the Von Briesen Solve in New York and Battery Lancaster for San Francisco and how closely they are. I mean, they're mirror images. Okay, so that's another reason why I like this solve. I think it's the confidence level is higher because of where you end up in New York. In any case, there's this yin and yang concept. So you start in an arch, you end in an arch, right? So this is the arch that was put over Fort Point that saved Fort Point. And again, there's a whole history behind that. I cover that in more detail in that longer video, but look into it. Okay. So there's this yin yang. So what I think you're seeing in the image um, that that JJP put together, I think you're seeing certainly the outline of GGP of Golden Gate Park, but the internals of the Presidio. All right. So when I give my best overlay to this, the crossover hands that people think, that's down in the middle here. It's really not a good fit. Um, what I think is a better fit is when I'll show you in the next one, is the toll area. Okay. But this is what has gotten people tripped up for decades, is they see the outline of GGP and they want to run up there. It just doesn't really make a lot of sense. Although I grant you, this is the outline of GGP. I believe it is, right? I mean, very clearly. Okay, so the problem is when you start to look inside of GGP, these roads are very straight through here. They don't really wind at all. Some of the trails kind of wind, but you can just visually see it. You got a kind of straight shot right through the park. Okay, it doesn't really match the Dragon and how curvy and windy these roads are. Well, guess what? It does match. It does match the roads inside the Presidio. So I think what JJP has done, he's combined these two parks into one. That's my view. So here's the overlay from this is the cemetery right up here, and you can see all these windy sort of scaly roads. I'm gonna blow that up. You see the this is all the military housing, but see how windy and curvy? It's very scale like. Okay, and these roads have changed over the years. But here's the overlay. Now, as it turns out, when you oops, why it's doing that. When you overlay the painting, the dragon is actually biting the spot where I think he put the cask. Now, is that coincidence? Maybe. I like it though. So here's the dragon. This is the spot right down in here. and the hands actually match right here. I don't know why it's doing that. It's like got its own mind. But this is the toll area right here. So visually, it's at least a better fit than putting the painting over top of GGP. Would you grant me that? All right. So again, the dragon is literally biting the spot. I'm not sure that's coincidence or right, but man, this is pretty good. Okay, so does it match the roads exact? No, it doesn't. Okay, but we still kind of get there. So we've got the cemetery up here, and you wind your way down these roads. If you've driven this at all, you know. I mean, it is just windy and it's super scenic. I highly recommend you driving through the Presidio. All right, so battery imagery. This is what led us to thinking, hey, we're in a battery. Oops, get that a little bigger for you. Okay, so there's all this battery imagery. And yeah, like you've got the water here, so maybe this is the city and it's surrounded by all these batteries. Yeah, there's tons of batteries around San Francisco. I don't know how many, but a lot. And we spent a good amount of time and did some operations, serious operations at them, at the wrong ones. But this is what we were picking up when you go and visit these. And these are my pictures. This one is. These are mine. This is Battery Chamberlain. um, you see this, very similar imagery to what he's showing you here. Look at this, it's just almost a perfect fit to this and this. So I included that here for you to reference. But yeah, I think that's what he was telling us here. So that in our mind was like, okay, he's showing us all this battery imagery. We're gonna probably end up at a battery, or a battery will be a very strong component to this puzzle, right? So I just want to show you that, like, it's reinforced here by what you see. It's not a stretch, I don't think. Like, what is all this stuff? Like, I don't see people in GGP giving me a good answer to what these are. They kind of just, I don't know what it is. Well, for our solve, you end up at a battery, so it makes sense. I like that. All right, so go visit these batteries. They're really cool. Now, a lot of them are in major disrepair. I'm gonna just stop for a second. New York is next to, we think it's Von Briesen Park, which is next to Fort Wadsworth. And there are batteries there, totally abandoned and run over. But you don't see any battery imagery in New York. That's why and for a lot of reasons, we think you're right next door in Von Briesen Park. And you're not at Fort Wadsworth, but Wads would make a lot of sense if you're in Battery Lancaster here, but you're just kind of right next door. And I think for Byron, Arthur von Briesen was such an incredible fit as a person to the whole story of The Secret and what Byron's trying to tell us. Yeah, you couldn't not put von Briesen into this thing. That's a whole different video. All right, so anyway, battery imagery, right? So when we're looking at these eyes in the image, it's like they gotta mean something else. They're just too stylized, right? So yeah, like when you start to look, this is actually Battery Lancaster. And there's three of them here. And by the way, there's three images here. Okay, he's got that put together. Yeah, we think these are, look at the angle, right? It's just a great match to the eyes. All right, so where do you end up? You're now down at Battery Lancaster, and this is the image. This is what sold us, right? Is what were all these spires? They're very stone-like. They're very stylized, but my goodness, when you look at these four posts that are sitting supporting the arch that didn't need to be there, it was put there to save the fort. Yeah, you know, it's really hard to deny this. So I think the other aspect to this was when you look at the portico way up there, you absolutely see that. That's it's like battery 129. It's a not incomplete battery that was never really brought online. It's massive, and I had other pictures in the longer presentation that I showed on this. But man, it just, how can you deny this? Right? It's way up in the distance. So yeah, this was just another confirming indicator for us. So what is this? It's not, when you go up there to the battery, it doesn't look like this. So I do think that represents this arch, right? Which was put there again to save the fort underneath. So I'll let you read up on that. But yeah, this is where we end up. I mean, look at this shot. New York, by the way, looks the same way from Von Briesen Park. It's just kind of opposite sides, but you still have a fort underneath the bridge, and you know the Verrazano Narrows Bridge actually displaced the Golden Gate. Okay, in 1964 is the longest suspension bridge. So these two bridges actually have a history together. So when you turn from the dig spot and you look towards the city, this is the view. I mean, it's incredible. New York City is the same way. From Von Briesen, you look at the bridge to your right, and you turn to the left, and you see this incredible view of Manhattan, of the skyline. It's incredible. I've showed you guys some pictures of that. So this is the area right in here where you would end up in the Shoreline Solve. It's this area right in here has been worked on countless times. When you go back through all the old pictures, it's been cleared out, replanted, cleared out. This is a fence you can just kind of see. That fence is no longer there. So what was done if it was buried somewhere in here? And I think this one is, I do think it's gone, this spot. Okay, a couple other things, and I'm going to close it down here, but the pearl is clearly elevated, and this is the spot here. So you had the trail, and you've got, I don't know, 10 feet up. And that makes sense, right? He's showing us the pearl is elevated. I think this is the trail. You notice this is not symmetrical entirely. It sort of flattens out. So does the trail. Kind of flattens out over here. All right. Couple things. People don't like this modified image, the enhanced image, but whoever put the modified image together, the enhanced, they noted this red dot sitting in the corner of one eye. Well, what is that? It's not over here. So, if get the original one, and is there some square in there that's maroon colored or a little darker color? I don't know. I think so. Why would they put it in here? So that actually matches the staircase. There's a staircase right here, a red staircase sitting inside the eyeball, right in the corner of the eye where it should be. This is another thing that we look at. We're like, yeah, it's a great fit. What else explains this? I don't know. In our spot, we've got a great explanation for it. It's this red staircase. So that gets you down into the battery. All right, so again, that's our spot. And there's all these other confirming visuals. When you turn this on its side, you start to see, the battery up here maybe. This is, I think this is the battery as well, potentially. Here you've got the fort and the bridge. And then you've got what I think is pretty compelling. This is that what I call the hook and ball hedge. You really see that here right next to her eyes. And I've showed you some of that. So there's all these confirmation. The purple dot and this, and I did a whole video on this. This is the roundhouse. The roof on that used to be colored. It's white now, so when you look at Google Maps, you don't notice it as such. But yeah, it used to be purple. And boy, it fits really well, to where we think at least the gem is in relation to those two reference points. All right. So then I've got some old pictures here, but I wanted to give you a quick rundown of the Shoreline Solve. And certainly I appreciate your feedback on this, but gosh, the visuals really what sold us on this spot. All right. I hope you all have a great rest of the week, and we'll talk to you soon.